How much is the total? Because you told me I could have 20% outside and 80% inside.
Well,
What's the total? Well, the total's different this year, so you're a little, just
dis-
don't do it at the
Do
hour.
you disregard the fact that they say their business needs the ability to make some of these deliveries? I mean, you can
I'm
do
not
that.
disregarding it.
Yeah,
I'm
not
saying
disregarding at all.
I'm letting it happen during normal business hours for me. That's
Yeah, you
just
can't,
kinda
you
where
can't
I'm
deliver
at.
firewood from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then hours on Saturday and forget about Sunday?
What?
You can't just deliver it on those hours? I mean, how many people need a cord of wood at a moment's notice?
On Sunday.
On Sunday?
On Sunday, yes.
You need it on a moment's notice,
I
Monday
don't-
through
I
Friday,
don't
most of
see
Saturday, you can get
any-
it.
I think that these trucks, you try and minimize the truck traffic when kids are around and people are at home. You just try and do that, and it makes sense to me.
What else? Anything else for tonight?
On signs,
Yes.
I think that they specify what signs they have, and we leave it at that.
Yes. We do
As
not
far
want to-
no, I mean, they've got some nursery signs currently up. We're not going to redo their signs.
That's Board of Selectmen does the signs. We are noting their location and
We,
that is, yeah.
they note it, and that's it.
Right.
Agreed.
That's
Yeah, I
it.
agree.
We have, I think that we want to make sure that we have a list of the rules they're going to impose on their employees.
Yep.
Uh,
I think that included using headphones and listening to
That's
music. you know,
right, and
yeah,
running
back and forth.
equipment and turning
Yeah.
the equipment off and not leaving it idling.
They're gonna have
and,
headphones on, they don't need backup on them. I don't know if the insurance company's gonna like it, though.
And we've got some of those in this draft
The
already.
snow
yeah.
plowing, we've got we've got the equipment they used in 2012.
We have where the equipment will be stored on and off
Right,
season.
and then the loading, it presumably will load where presumably they will get ready to leave and load up sand and whatever if they do sand. They probably don't. It's probably just plowing.
It was just plowing. I don't remember seeing invoices.
So, but they
for
would leave from the central
that land care yard. Yeah.
land care yard.
I think we can safely not put hours on snow plowing, given that
Now,
snow
snow
does its
plowing,
thing. Yeah.
snow plowing, I can understand,
on-
people need it right away.
On smell, it
Yes.
does seem to me that
The wood is just stay warm away from the plow.
it seems to me that if there is a smell coming from mulch, there are a number of ways to deal with it. And but dealt with it has to be. That I mean, even the 1967 permit actually says that no unsightly piles of loam, no manure or fertilizer which may have an odor. It doesn't mention mulch. But in any event, if there is an odor coming from mulch, one way of handling it is simply saying you can't store as much mulch.
Yeah.
And I think that if covering it and, you know, if it continues to be a problem, then they've got to store less of it.
So I think so we start off with the sprinklers that run at a regular basis. If that's not solving that, then they have to cover. If that's not solving that, then they have to
Well,
reduce the amount on site.
I mean, the
you wanna
sprinklers are
tier-
just to keep it from
Dusting.
getting airborne,
Yep.
not to saturate it.
Okay, so then the cover. If there's
And-
still
and
an
they-
odor, cover. If there's still an odor, reduce the amount on site. If there's still
Yes.
an odor, then we've got some problems.
Well,
So,
I mean, you can put some general language in that they need
Yeah.
to mitigate it, or
yeah.
Well, you can, but you do want them to do it during the pendency of the permit. You don't
Agreed.
want to wait until
Agreed.
Right.
however
Yeah, so that
long
they
it
need to
is.
take whatever they can, right?
Right, yes.
Take whatever
Must
actions they
respond
can.
to complaints
Yep.
within a reasonable amount of time. We should probably define reasonable amount of time. So,
I mean, there is a provision in this zoning that if there's a problem, there has to be a complaint receiver on site, and that when you make a legitimate complaint, it's got to be solved forthwith, not years down the road. And there'll be a log of complaints, and
Good point.
and this is going to be one way of this will feed into enforcement.
I'm assuming that we would then require, upon review of the special permit, we would require that log of complaints to be provided to us.
I would think so, just because, I mean, this zoning does require a little self-help. Doesn't require the building inspector to look at the complaint. When someone comes up and says to the operator, there's a problem, they've got to, in good faith, listen to the complaint and deal with it if it's a legitimate complaint.
Do we need to discuss ambient noise? We left that as an open item at the last meeting. We actually ended on that.
That's right, we did. What were your thoughts?
Well, I think the way we left it last time, per Tim's helpful notes here, the key was going to be that we need to mitigate the additional impact of the addition of a landscaping business, and the permit needs to come up with an overall reduction of noise to be any good, which I think we all agreed with. So
Yep.
all that was really left was determining. So I guess we just the question on the table was, does ambient noise include nursery or not? And I think
Unless
it does.
unless the nursery wasn't there for the last
Right. So I think
50 years. Then.
As I remember, Alex brought up a good point, which was, yes, we absolutely want to mitigate the impact of adding the landscaping. That's 100%, but we will also want to do our best to mitigate the impact of the nursery itself. So maybe what we actually need are two levels. What's the ambient noise if just the nursery is operating, and what's the ambient noise without the nursery? So, but the question is, under what circumstances are we going to be looking at ambient noise?
You can't separate it. I mean, the noise is going to be of both operations, and it will differ. You're not going to be able to say this is nursery noise, this is landscape noise with any particularity. And it does seem to me that if we're dealing with, I mean, if they want to continue to operate their nursery, they don't need a permit from us.
Right.
But if they want to do
The landscaping.
landscaping,
Right.
then saying the amount of noise coming out of that site where you're doing the landscaping, given the fact that you can't break it down into two separate types of noise, you use the combined noise. Got
So,
to.
but so then the question becomes, okay, we're requiring the fence, we're requiring the landscaping on both sides. The idea is that this will mitigate the additional noise of the landscaping plus at least some of the noise from the nursery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then there is a complaint from whomever that the fence and the landscaping are not doing the job of mitigating that noise. How do we determine the validity of that complaint?
First
What
of
are we
all,
going
you'd have to have a third-party sound engineer go out there and establish the ambient sound level.
Okay, and are we requiring that that ambient sound level be with or without the nursery noise?
Well, no, wait
How
a
are you
minute.
gonna
Who's
do-
going to pay
exactly.
for it?
Who's going to do that?
Yeah, well, this is what we're asking when we look at mitigation. is
Building
how do we do
inspector,
this?
send him out there.
Except he's already said that he's not buying one of the sound meters.
We'll buy
that he
one
needs
for
to
him.
do. Are we going to whip around the collection?
we have some time on the October town meeting, I think.
Well, see, that's if he doesn't have one and you have a complaint and you go out there, if you don't have a sound meter, then how do you know that?
We've got
Right.
complaints now.
Right, so, but my,
We've got
I mean, I
complaints now.
worked in Cambridge, and they have a sound level, and they have an
yes,
ambient sound level, and how
Right.
much you can exceed it by.
right,
And it was Harvard, and they called the police, and if you say to the policeman, "Where's the sound meter?" He's going to say,
No, but you
he's
don't.
going to say he's not happy with you, and stop making the noise and shut it down now. So it's again, it's
And
very
ambient noise,
subjective.
I mean, you can't tell if something's 10 decibels over without knowing what the ambient noise and how high, it's, I deal with it all the time
Right.
in
Right.
retail. It's-
I mean, these sound levels, they allow
But-
your
have to-
exceptions. They say
You-
you can exceed the ambient for,
Right.
5 minutes.
You know, what's going on now with the aircraft noise, people don't like the aircraft noise. It isn't as though that every time an airplane goes over, they say this is ambient and this is what happened. They say it's too loud, it's ruining our quality of life. You can say that. If you take the measurement, then of course you have to figure out what ambient is, but it doesn't mean you can't complain about the noise.
Oh, no, I understand
And my
that.
point
It's
And
just-
is-
if I mean, you know what a bobcat sounds like. At least most people should know what. If you have two bobcats and they start up and they never stop, then you may have a legitimate complaint. You do have a legitimate complaint.
So all I'm trying to get from you is when this comes back for its review, how do we judge?
This is why you're writing it.
Thank you,
You're
Alex.
going to come up with a solution to this.
Oh, okay, good
I
to
mean,
know.
what did when we talked about curry and stuff, you said
Right.
the policeman goes up there, if he can't carry on a conversation with you with the sound going off,
And
it's too loud, shut it down.
and then the police said, we don't want to do it.
Yes, that was the problem with that, so. Okay, so Tim and I will confer, and we'll come back.
Right.
Well, so then this brings me to the question. Actually,
I
have
gotta
you
believe
gone
this,
through everything?
this 8-foot fence with the sound attenuation, it's gotta help.
Better.
Well, I
If
certainly
I put
hope
up
so, because
cardboard
otherwise
boxes
those
8 feet high,
those
it would
sound
help.
attenuation guys should be out of business if it's not going to do any.
Right.
But we have to provide for the fact that what happens if it doesn't? What do we do? All right, so then that brings me to my next question, because I see Alex has closed his warrant. Do you feel at this point that it is worth Tim and myself drafting a draft special permit in the affirmative that yes, we're going to grant it, so that we can review all of these conditions? Is any of you sitting here thinking that there is absolutely no point because there's no way I'm voting for that? How do you want us to proceed? Are we drafting something? And by saying that, you are not saying tonight that you're voting in favor. All I want to know is, are we moving to the next step? Because if at this point, one of you is sitting here saying, there's no way I'm going to approve this, there's no point in Tim and me spending the time to draft
I
a
think
special
that
permit in the
even
positive.
if one person said, there's no way I'm going to not approve this, we still should do what you're suggesting.
okay, so
just
you want me to
because,
draft something?
People don't know what they're voting on until they
see it? Okay.
until they see
That's
it.
fine. I just want to make sure I have clear direction so that Tim and I know what we're doing going forward. And obviously, we'll be consulting with Bill. Alex, you may or may not see a draft come your way as well. So Alex has, of course, the most familiarity with writing special permits. So the idea then is we will work on a full draft in the affirmative for discussion at our next meeting. We will do our best to get it to you in plenty of time to review it.
Or you can
prior to next
you can
meeting.
do pieces. I think you're going to find that these things take a bit of time.
I have actually drafted one or two, as I recall, with your comments on them, Alex, and they do take a bit of time. So, okay, so then that's what we will do for the next meeting. We'll leave it at that. This has been very helpful. On zoning, which is the next item on our agenda, I don't have much. At some point, we need to take a formal vote on the warrant committee's recommendation, and I will double check on their recommendation for town meeting. For the January zoning, I have asked town council to look at the ability to regulate sound and light for entities under the Dover Amendment, and also to look at what would happen if those were a general bylaw rather than a zoning bylaw. So he's working his way into that, and that's just what I wanted to report. Tim, I think, has been doing some research on some of the other provisions. He'd asked me about B&B. So I'm hoping at our next meeting, I wanted to wait till Cheryl got back before we had an in-depth conversation, or back to this meeting rather. So I think at our next meeting, we'll start a more in-depth conversation about what we brought up, unless anybody has anything to that point tonight.
Well, I would like to say that on the non-conforming buildings,
Yes.
I listened to the chairman of the warrant committee, who said that the lawyers came in and they just, there's all sorts of stuff that we should cover here.
Yes.
And the reason this was in the warrant is that the lawyers said we have a problem, and I thought this addressed the problem. But if the lawyers think that there are other problems that can be better addressed, far be it from me to push forward. Let them come up with something for May. And the other thing is that Bill should ask the chief why the police can't get out there and enforce the amplified music. It will get them to meet the people.
So just to let everybody know who hadn't had a chance to watch that, when I appeared in front of the warrant committee, there were two main questions. And one on the amplified music was that the chief of police was not eager to be the enforcing agent for that. So the warrant committee also, when we'd had our public hearing, there was a citizen who's also a member of the warrant committee that had been interested in a larger sound bylaw beyond amplified music. And the warrant committee also seemed to think that there was an opportunity for us to look into a wider bylaw. There was some discussion of that. So they had voted to send that back to us.
To the point on sound, I mean, we talked about it with lighting as well. It seems like sound should probably be considered as a general bylaw.
Which was Alex's point in putting it in there. So
So we're not going to be able to operate the blowers on Sundays now, and that's going to affect the
Except
landscape.
the chief wants the building inspector to do it, and of course the building inspector wants the chief to do it.
So when we consider this for putting forward in January, we should consider it as a general bylaw, and that's why I've got town council looking at that portion. And we also need to think about, do we want it to be beyond amplified music, cover lawn, leaf blowers and other things. And of course, other towns have done this, so we'll have a chance to look at that.
I think we've got to go
Go big.
more global, just
I think
because
you have
Go
to.
big or
It's going
go
to happen
home?
at
Yeah, I
town
think
meeting
so.
if we
otherwise.
don't
Yes,
go more
exactly.
global, no, we've got to go more global.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
and
I
I
agree
think
on
most
that.
of your sound violations are going to happen after hours and on weekends. I just don't think it's reasonable to put that to the building inspector, because people typically are not complaining about sound at 3 o'clock on a
So
Wednesday.
then, right, and so then we need to think about how that's going to do. So with the other one, Alex's summary is exactly right. We had, in our discussions, been looking at a particular issue that had been brought forward to us. When I got to the warrant committee, the chair of the warrant committee had been talking to the building inspector. So it became clear, and we had others at the meeting, it became clear that some people thought we were solving one problem, some people thought we were solving other problems, some people thought there were additional problems to be solved. And so what they had done was talked to town council to see if there, and the warrant committee chair and the building inspector thought it should be in one part of the bylaw. We had proposed a different bylaw. So the chair of the warrant committee contacted town council to say, are any of these within the scope of the article? And as I reported our last meeting, right before our meeting, he got back to say, no, they are not within the scope of the article. So it made, I think, if the warrant committee has not already voted to do so. My understanding was that they were going to vote to send that back to us as well. And I think it would be a good idea for us to define the questions so that everybody is on board with the same question, and then we can discuss how we're going to solve it. Because
In other words,
clearly
we should agree to send it back and...
I would agree to send it back, because as I said to the chair when he contacted me, I said, look, if you send it back to us now, we have a chance of getting it in for January and May, and that's fine. That works out well. We can already start with those discussions. So I think at our next meeting, we need to do that. And then finally, Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve. I'm assuming you guys don't want to meet on those days. So if you feel that we're in a position to skip one or both of those, that would be great. We have had quite a year so far as meetings go. If you think we need those meetings, one or both of them, then obviously we need to pick a different date. So I will say that I am currently booked solid for Thanksgiving week. So it would have to be the week prior or the week after for my schedule, but obviously.
I would probably propose, we probably don't need the last meeting in December.
As long as we're spot on with our zoning stuff, because of course it'll be the first week in January that they're all due to the
Okay,
selectmen.
we
Oh,
And
my,
we
yeah.
have
probably
no.
retract what I just said.
I'm wondering
It's
if we,
probably going to be a critical meeting.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
but it doesn't have to be Christmas Eve. It could be earlier
No.
that week, or it could be the week between Christmas and New Year's. That one, go home and look at your calendars and let me know. Thanksgiving week, I'm wondering if we need that meeting. We'll have just been through town meeting. I'm hoping that maybe if we
Can we do
can't.
what we need to do in 2 meetings in December for zoning?
Well, 2 meetings in December for zoning and 1 in November. Do you think we need 2 meetings in November? Again, we don't
I'm
have to
asking.
necessarily
Depends
decide
on
this
how much
tonight.
we're doing for
Yeah,
January.
Yeah.
Remember what's on your schedule already. You've got 3341 Pleasant Street for the definitive
Oh,
subdivision.
that's right. I forgot they were coming
Starting up
in.
next
That's the
meeting, the
22nd.
22nd,
What time are they coming in next week?
7:15.
7:15? Okay, good. So, all right. Do we have any other known entities coming up? I mean, obviously, we have to finish whatever we're doing on Thayer needs to happen. I'm hoping, if not next meeting, and given Alex's comment, a good point on the draft, be nice if we could wrap that up one way or the other, the first meeting in November. I think that would be nice for everybody concerned. So then we'll have the zoning, wewe'll have
I have a- I
Pleasant.
think
What
I
else
have
do we
a
have?
site plan approval coming in beginning of November.
For, do you know yet? Okay, you just know it's coming. Okay, fine. Okay, so then have a look at your calendars and see what else we can do in November and see what we can make work. So
I suppose we could also do subcommittee for zoning if we need to.
that's a possibility as well. Yeah. So think about that.
Okay.
I think we have 5. All right, Becca, I have
So moved.
a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Nice job, guys.